Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. From now through May 6th, if you use that promo code, you will automatically be entered into a drawing to win a War of the Spark booster box. See the description below for details. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and we have another day of War of the Spark previews to take a look at, and we have a lot of cards today, so I'm going to try to go a little bit quicker to get through them all. And if you are curious about the sources, as always, they are in the description below. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Wizards revealed all of the tokens today. Now, a few of these we have seen before, but we're just going to quickly look at all of them. Here's the Spirit token, which of course is colorless. Here's your white tokens, Angel, Soldier, and Wall. Blue Wizard token. Black has Assassin, Zombie, Zombie Warrior. And of course the 3 Zombie Army cards that we saw before. Red has Devil, Dragon, and Goblin. Green has Wolf. For multicolor, we have Voja, Friend to Elves, which we have seen before, but we also get our first look at the 5-color Citizen token. For artifacts, you get a Servo, and there's 1 emblem for Nissa. Wizards finally showed us the version of Liliana's Triumph that you'll actually get in the War of the Spark packs. Previously, we talked about this card a couple of weeks ago, so I won't spend a lot of time on it now, but what we saw before was a promo copy of the card. And Wizards finally did announce the War of the Spark Mythic Edition, which we knew was coming due to a leak, but we got all the information. It will go on sale on the eBay Hasbro store Wednesday, May 1st at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, there's a limit of 2 per person. It can ship anywhere in the world, and they are making 12,000 of these. The price, again, will be $249.99. There'll be 24 packs of War of the Spark in there, and 8 of the packs will be marked and will have the specialty Planeswalkers in foil. And here's what they're going to look like. You get Ugin, the Spirit Dragon. Gideon Blackblade, that's the one we saw leaked a while back. Jace the Mind Sculptor. Tezzeret the Seeker. Garruk Apex Predator. Nicol Bolas Dragon God. Nahiri the Harbinger. And finally, Sarkhan Unbroken. Okay, let's move on to the actual War of the Spark previews for today. Mugen the Ineffable. Okay, so this is pretty sweet. This card is a little expensive at 6. However, it's doing a lot here. First off, I got to point this out. Colorless spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. Okay, for 6 mana, and considering the fact that the standard format isn't doing a whole lot with colorless spells right now, that might not stand out to you currently. But think about Commander for this one. A lot of those colorless Commander decks have been popular. You know that if you've been watching the Market Watches on Saturday. This is only going to push those decks a little bit harder, and some of those cards might go up in value again. But beyond Commander, this is a pretty solid card. The +1 and the -3 are both very, very strong. I do think in spite of that 6 casting cost, it might see a little bit of standard play, maybe in like Mardu Aristocrats. I really like how that +1 is kind of a take on the old Manifest mechanic, and in an Aristocrats deck, this is able to get you creatures, but then later on actually let you see more cards, and that's kind of cool too. So the -3 also could be very relevant. I like how the -3 can kill Bolas, but Bolas in turn can actually kill Ugin. So pretty nice design there. I like that. Of course, this is a limited bomb. It's a rare. You're not going to see it a whole lot, but if you're lucky enough to get it, play with it. It doesn't commit you to any colors. Very easily first pickable in a draft pack. It does not commit you to anything. Coogans Conjurer. Not a lot to say about this one. It's a fine limited curve filler. I like cards like this when I play Drafter Seal because I can play this on turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4. It plays well with Proliferate. It scales with the game, nothing wrong with that. Doesn't do anything super impressive, but if you need a body on the battlefield at any point, it is there for you. Battlefield Promotion. Another good limited card here. Now, I like this because even if I don't start it off in my main deck, which maybe I don't some of the time, because you only have so many spots for non-creature spells. If I have a lot of good removal spells or something like that, maybe it doesn't make my cut. But if I'm up against an aggressive build, then yeah, I'm going to bring it in because not only is it a very good combat trick, but also you gain a couple life off of it. Another card that plays well with the Proliferate mechanic. It only costs 2. Very good card for the limited environment. Charmed Stray. I love these cards that you can kind of draft around a little bit. They're kind of a side strategy you can pick up. If you can grab all the Charm Strays in a draft, you might be having a good day. This is another card that potentially grows with +1/+1 counter, so there is Proliferate synergy. This isn't really good in sealed though, because you probably won't get enough copies for it to be great. You don't really want to think about playing this card unless you get minimally 3. Probably you want 4 before you're really going to be happy. Again, that's why it's just better in draft. It's not a card that I'm trying to actively work into standard either, but it does combo with Helm of the Host for you crazy brewers out there. Something to think about. Divine Arrow. This is a functional reprint of Gideon's Reproach, and yeah, that was a good limited card. This is going to be a good limited card. It's a common. You'll see these floating around in a draft. They'll be in your sealed pool. Great removal for the limited game. Enforcer Griffin. Okay, this is fine for limited. A 3/4 flyer for 5. Sometimes that will flat out just win you games because of the size and the evasion. Other times, you might have better things when you're looking at your higher spots in your deck. If you happen to have a few 5 casting cost bombs, then maybe you skip this one, but I think usually you play it in draft or sealed, and you're usually happy with it. Gideons Sacrifice. Okay, this is a somber day when it comes to the storyline of the cards, but this card makes me happy. It's actually quite cool. It's really cheap, only costs 1 white, it's an instant. It combos with Command the Dread Horde, which we saw yesterday. That could be a pretty big play. And if you want to go a little janky with it and try something crazy in standard, you might even be able to play those 2 cards alongside Truefire Captain. That could be fun to try out. Don't think it's going to be great, but it could be fun to try out. Now, if you went over to Commander, you could try that out too, and there's also other cards that could combo with those cards to push the damage off to other targets as well. So what about outside of those type of situations? Is this good in limited? Yeah, I actually think it is. It's cheap, it's fast. If it's going to surprise your opponent for just 1 white, they might not play around this. Even though it is a common, they do need to be wary of this card. But if they attack you and just try to put you away, for example, and it's a close game, you could just take all that damage, direct it to one of your creatures, and then you have everything open to maybe crack back next turn. That could be really good under the right set of circumstances. So I do think I play this more often than not in draft or sealed. We finally see the last zombie god with God Eternal O Katra, and this card does not disappoint. 5 casting cost, 3/6 double strike. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 4/4 black zombie warrior creature token with vigilance, and it also has that same persistence the other gods have. Wow. Okay. Let's talk limited first. This thing is a bomb. It should be, of course, being a mythic, but let me say this. This is the best card that could possibly be in your pack 1 of a draft. It's 1 color. You know you're going to be casting a lot of creatures typically in your limited games. This is just added value. So, okay. The obvious out of the way. What about standard? Does it see play there? Of course it sees play there. This thing is amazing. Imagine playing this in like a white weenie deck. It's kind of towards the higher end of the curve there, but once it is out, all your smaller plays are just that much better as the game goes on. Imagine playing this in a Selesnya build even with some light ramp. Maybe you have some Llanowar Elves for a fast start. Turn 8, turn 9, turn 10. You don't want to be drawing Llanowar Elves typically, but this time that elf is bringing 5/5 power toughness to the battlefield for just 1 green. There's nothing wrong with that. This is probably good enough to see some modern play too. Commander, sure, it's going to be awesome there. This could be your commander. It is legendary. Ironclad Crib. This is not a thrilling limited card. This is one of those things you end up with. It goes to your sideboard. And if you come up against a really aggressive build, then you could side it in. It costs 4. You're going to be bleeding a little bit, maybe turn 2, turn 3. But this could help to stabilize you as you move forward. Yeah, it's going to be there for those situations. Other than that, you don't want to play it. Prison Realm. This is pretty sweet. Enchantment removal for white. There's a lot of cards currently in the standard environment that are similar to this. This one does let you scry though, and that could be important for some decks. So I wouldn't count this out as standard by any means. I do think it will see at least a little bit of play there. I gotta point out though, look at that art. Poor Bolas. He looks so sad there. I guess he kind of had it coming though. In limited, this is very first pickable. Great removal there. Trusted Pegasus. This card will be fantastic. They make a lot of these type of cards now for your draft and sealed environment, but I don't know, that 2/2 power and toughness just makes it feel that much better for me. Aven Eternal. It's a 3 casting cost, but it brings you 3/3 power toughness onto the battlefield, 2 of which in the air, and the other one, of course, is due to a mass. Now that's pretty good economy for limited, whether you're playing with more mass cards or not. I do think mass cards do get pretty good in larger quantities, though, because think of it this way. Let's say I have a 3/3 zombie army token on the battlefield. Now, when this comes into play, it becomes a 4/4. That's going to surprise my opponent. 1/1 of that power and toughness is going to basically feel like it has haste. It can attack in right away. Your opponent has to be prepared not only for what they see is on the battlefield, but what that token could become if you do play another amass card. Callous Dismissal. Now, this is a card that can really hose amass, but at the same time, it also amasses itself. So it's 2 casting cost, sorcery speed, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hands. It is nice that it's non-land permanent. It can hit a lot of things, but a lot of the times what it might be hitting is a big amass token. It is also kind of nice that it's giving you a little board presence with a 1/1, or it might be growing an already existing zombie army. Overall, they don't have a lot of bounce spells in this set for limited purposes because they don't want to hose amass too much. So when you can get your hands on one, I would try to have one handy. Even if you're sideboarding it in, it's good to have in a draft just in case. Sky Theater Strix. This is okay for limited. A 1/2 for 2 with flying. I mean, sometimes you just need evasion. The power can grow until end of turn based on if you play a non-creature spell. So there's planeswalkers. There's going to be instants and sorceries in blue that you might be able to play. So there are things that could buff it up. If you have enough non-creature spells in your deck, and in this format, you probably will, this could be worth running. Also, in this limited environment, even small flyers become more valuable because of all the planeswalkers. Thunderdrake, another decent limited card. First off, a 2/3 with flying for 4 is not out of the question for me for draft or seal, just because, again, sometimes you just need that evasion. Now, if I can cast more than one spell in a given turn, it will get a +1/+1 counter. Not until end of turn, it actually gets a counter, so it grows permanently. That's kind of nice. And from that point forward, you could always proliferate and such. So I do think there's enough upside here. You could run this with some cheap spells maybe, or a little bit of ramp perhaps, so you can easily cast 2 things at some point and get it going. Definitely worth your time. Wall of Ruins. This is fine for draft or sealed too. I mean, a lot of times I look at these cards and I'm not really thrilled about them, but I always find myself playing a copy. Something like this is good for blue because blue likes to slow down the game a little bit, protect themselves against those early attacks while they can kind of get their feet under them so that they can play their spells in the long game. They tend to be a little more controlling, a little more methodical. Sometimes this will help you get there, and it also scries 1, which is never a bad thing. If you don't main deck it, bring it in against aggressive matchups. Nothing crazy here, but it has its role. I'd love to see the High Alert or a Cade's deck get there in Standard. If it did, this could be a part of it. I just don't really feel like that's going to happen most likely. Bleeding Edge, great limited card. Might see a tad bit of Standard play, maybe. I like the swing it gives you. It is sorcery speed, but you get a 2/2 creature out of it, even if you have no other amass going on. And you also get to give something -2/-2. That could be nice if you get rid of something smaller on your opponent's side. You get yourself a small creature. I like that kind of economy. Definitely a relatively high draft pick for me, even if I'm not playing with any other amass cards. Charity Extractor. I love the flavor text here, but this is another one of those limited cards that you don't want to play unless you have to. It sits in your sideboard, but wait for those aggressive matchups and go in and get it. I like this better than the white card we saw a few moments ago. This is a 1/5 for 4, and it has lifelink. So it does kind of help you recover from maybe the early hits you took in turn 2 or turn 3. Dreadmalkin. This is cheap. I'm going to give it that. It's just a 1-drop, which is kind of nice. It's also a zombie. It has menace, and I could grow it by sacrificing other creatures or planeswalkers. The problem is I do have to pay a black and 2. That feels a little expensive for Standard. I was thinking maybe Mardu Pyromancer, because I love the fact that you can get this thing out on turn 1 if you want to. However, I don't know if the 3 is realistic. It is also a mana sink though, so later in the game, if the game does go on for a little while, I could use this ability more than one time per turn, and it gets 2 +1/+1 counters when I activate it. That is substantial. If I have other death triggers going on, I don't know, it could be interesting. I'd at least test it there, but I'm not sold on it at this point. When it comes to limited though, yeah, you might be able to find some things to do with it there. Remember, your planeswalkers that are uncommon, they typically will be able to tick down and then they don't necessarily die. They can sometimes just sort of hang around, especially in a board stall. So if that's the case, you could feed those planeswalkers that you already used to this thing. And eventually it could become larger. Also, you have proliferate in the set too. So all you have to do in some cases is activate it once and you might be able to expand it from there. It's not going to be great in every draft or sealed build. It just kind of depends on what you have and how much you can eat into your board state. But some decks might want this. Duskmantle Operative. Okay, those of you who've watched the channel for a while, what do you think I'm going to say about this one? I'll wait. Alright, that's probably enough time. 2/2 for 2 with upside? Yeah, play it in limited. You're going to love it. This is a great curve filler. The 2 spot in your curve is the most important spot in your whole deck. You need drops there. You need some creatures that will do some things. This is perfect. Early on, it's board presence, and who knows, later in the game, if you can get rid of your opponent's smaller things, then this could get in for some extra damage. Price of Betrayal, another real heavy card here. Heavy cards today, heavy cards, but a good one again. This is cheap. It only costs 1 black. This will see some standard play, I think, out of sideboards, at least to deal with some of the planeswalkers that could be in the upcoming environment. Aside from that, this will be good in limited for the same reason, and also due to the prevalence of +1/+1 counters. And in Commander, there's a lot of things you can do with this. This could hit experience counters, energy counters, it could take off some charge counters on various artifacts. Still deals with planeswalkers, deals with +1/+1 counters. Tons of versatility here. Tithe-Bearer Giant. Okay, this is one of those cards that replaces itself when it enters the battlefield. You lose 1 life, but that's okay. Typically, you know I love these type of cards. Here's the problem, though, with this one. I don't know if I like the fact that it is so expensive, even though it is bigger than other types of these cards. I almost rather just pay 3 for the 2/2 and get the extra card and lose the life, because I'm still getting some board presence and I'm moving through my deck. But at the 6 spot, there's not a lot of room in your draft or sealed decks, and you just might have better things. If you don't, this is not the worst thing in the world by any means. Like, I would never be sad to play this, but I'm kind of hoping for something better. Unlikely Aid. All right, now this is awesome. I love the art. I love the flavor text here. This is incredible. And this is a great combat trick for draft or sealed as well. 2 casting costs, so it's really cheap. I like the flexibility here. The indestructible to the creature is going to protect it from maybe some kind of destroy spell on the fly or a direct damage spell, or you just simply use it as an offensive or defensive combat trick. Tons of versatility. Like I said, sometimes combat tricks get left behind because you do have better removal or something like that in your deck, but this is one that I would be happy to play more often than not. Vampire Opportunist. This is a fine limited card. It's nothing crazy, but I like these kind of cards that can get past board stalls. In the late game, if you're just staring at your opponent and nobody can get by, well, you're going to get a 4-point life swing every turn for 7 mana. And that's enough to at least put pressure on your opponent to force them to do something, or else they're in trouble. For that reason alone, yeah, I'll run one of these in my deck and be happy with it for draft or sealed. A Boreal Grazer. I actually like this card, and I think it might see a little standard play, maybe out of sideboards. It is competing with Llanowar Elves, which are a little more consistent when it comes to giving you a quick start, of course. But I gotta pay attention to that 0/3 toughness and reach. Against some aggressive builds, I might not hate this. In limited, this will be fantastic. Again, it's going to gum up the ground early on, so you don't have to worry about getting beat down. And if you can drop an extra land to get ahead of curve, it's going to be awesome. New Horizons. This is a reprint. We saw this one in Ixalan not too long ago. I liked it a lot for draft or sealed there, and I feel like it's even better in this set because you have more of a chance to want to get greedy with colors here. And this is going to help you color fix and even ramp you out slightly. And aside from that, the +1/+1 counter on target creature you control could be exploited with proliferate effects. Yeah, I could see myself playing with these in draft or sealed in the future, definitely. Crawl Stinger, another good card for draft or sealed. 2/2, Death Touch for 3 and green. Yeah, I'll play this more often than not and be happy with it. Plane-Wide Celebration. The only drawback here is it's a little expensive and it's a sorcery speed spell, so I do think that's going to keep it out of standard, unfortunately. But this card does a lot. Choose 4, you may choose the same mode more than once, and you have so many different combinations. There's so many different things you can do with this. I love the versatility. This is awesome for Commander. I could see a lot of decks running green just throwing this card in for value there. Also, in limited, sure, it's a little more on the expensive side, but it is a bomb. The versatility, the different things you can do with this, it's a rare. You're not going to come across it all that much, but it's definitely worth running when you can. Return to Nature. Kind of an upgrade on Naturalize. Pretty interesting here. You can get rid of the artifact or enchantment or exile target card from a graveyard. You know, I always like extra options. I might not start off with this in my draft or seal builds, but if I need it to take care of an enchantment, artifact, or if my opponent is dipping into the graveyard, I will certainly bring it in. Snare Spinner. I might not want to main deck this in draft or seal, but I'll be happy it's in my sideboard if I'm dealing with flyers or aggressive creatures. I'll bring it in for those matchups for sure. D-Spark. Okay, so Esper Control, you're getting an embarrassment of riches, it feels like. This is another great card. Instant speed for 2, exile target permanent with converted mana cost 4 or greater. Notice that is permanent. Now, it has to be something larger, obviously, when it comes to converted mana cost, but there's already a lot of great targets for this in the standard environment. Rekindling Phoenix, Arclight Phoenix, because notice it does exile. Teferi's another good target for this. You could go after Bolas, like you see in the picture there, because why not? This is definitely going to see standard play. It probably sees a little bit of modern play. Limited, this will be a great early pickup in a draft. It's an uncommon. These will be floating around, but they will go quickly. And also in Commander, this hits a lot of targets. Elite Guard Mage. Now, I know this costs 4, but this one almost feels borderline standard playable just because of the value here. 2/3 flyer. Enters the battlefield, gain 3 life and draw a card? Yeah, that's kind of crazy. And it's a human wizard. You know, wizards are pretty relevant in the format for sure. But even if that doesn't happen in Limited, you're going to definitely want to pick up this card if you're in these colors. This is phenomenal. Great value here for 4 mana. These cards today. Here's another one. Heartwarming Redemption. Okay, so I don't know, maybe a little standard play if there's like a Boros aggro deck that's worried about running into too many lands or other cards that they can't use. The life gain might help in a mirror match too. Perhaps that could happen. It does feel like a long shot though. I do think this would be good in Limited if you're in these colors, however, because it does let you dig a little deeper for answers if you need to, again, especially if you end up flooding on lands. And in Commander, these type of effects are always good. Rubble Belt Rioters. This is a good Limited card. It only costs 3, power based on the largest creature you have, when it attacks anyway, and assuming you don't have any buffs on it to make the base power greater. But it has haste that could surprise your opponent. Imagine you had a 4/4 in play even, nothing crazy. Play this for 3. Attack in with 2 4/4s, your opponent might not have seen that coming, they could be taking a fair amount of damage. Even if you don't have a good line of attack, it is a decent blocker and could stabilize the board, giving you more time. Standard, I don't think it's consistent enough there because it is too dependent on board states, and it doesn't have trample or another way to push the damage across other than just having the haste and the surprise element. Tyrants Corn. Okay, this is another card that might see a little bit of standard play out of sideboards. It's cheap, it's fast. And it gives you a few options here. Choose one. Destroy target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less. It could deal with a small utility creature. Or return target creature to its owner's hand. Nice little tempo play on a larger creature. But I'm really impressed with this one for limited purposes. Because not only can it take care of a lot of creatures that could be entering the battlefield, but also if your opponent is playing a mass, this really messes them up. Being able to bounce a big amass creature into Oblivion could be game over for your opponent if they're all in on that strategy. Also, if you need to protect one of your own creatures, returning it to your hand with this is an option. Maybe you have a creature with a good enters the battlefield effect and you need to cast it again. There's a lot of things you can do with this card generally. Guild Globe. Okay, here's a way to fix your mana. This is only 2 casting cost. When it enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card too, so it does replace itself. Pay 2, tap and sacrifice, and you get 2 mana of different colors. Perfect for this limited game if you need to fix colors, and you know you're going to be getting a little bit greedy with colors in this set. This is a way to enable that a little bit in Drafter Sealed. Mana Geode. Here's a pretty cool Manor Rock. I can see myself maybe playing this in Commander too, but this will be great for you in Limited. It costs 3, it's not cheap, but it does let you scry 1 when it enters the battlefield, and then you can tap it for a mana of any color. So it ramps you out a little bit, and more importantly, maybe in this set, fixes your color. Prismite. More color fixing here. You have to pay 2 to add 1 of any color, so you're getting a negative return here. But if you're really desperate, that's okay. It's also a 2/1 creature in a pinch, so sometimes that will come in handy. Nothing crazy here, but again, if you're going deep with colors, you might want this for Drafter Sealed. And Gateway Plaza is back again, because of course it is. It's another great way to fix your mana in the limited games. Believe it or not, that is every card in the set. If you watch the whole series of videos, we talked about everything. I'm really looking forward to playing with these cards. They do seem super sweet, especially in Limited. It almost feels like a cube, kind of, because of all the Planeswalkers and such. I think it's going to be a good time. But anyway, as always, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page, as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.